Hi everyone. Today I'm talking about INFJ depression. Depression is something that a lot of people struggle with, and many INFJs struggle with depression. However, there's a specific kind of depression that INFJs tend to struggle with more commonly than other people. And I will say INFPs as well. I'm also including INFP personality types in this category today. With INFJ and INFP depression, a lot of the time there seems to be no known cause. There doesn't seem to be anything you can really put your finger on what's causing this depression. But one of the main reasons that INFJ and INFP personality types experience depression is actually blocked creativity. It's that we are not letting ourselves create. We're not letting ourselves pursue the things that mean so much to us, whether that is creativity in the form of writing or painting or dancing or decorating, whatever it is that really lights us up from the inside out and that feels like a passionate calling for us in life. We're not letting ourselves do that thing. INFJs and INFPs tend to have problems letting themselves create, giving ourselves permission to be creative, even though we are so desperately drawn to it. I see this every time I teach a class on creativity, or I publish a book on creativity, or I write an article on creativity. Lots and lots and lots of INFJ personality types and INFP personality types show up and say, oh, I really needed this, I love this, I'm so magnetized to this kind of material, this kind of content. This is really a big thing in my life. I know I need to be creative. It means so much to me, and it's always felt that way from such a young age, but I don't let myself do it. I haven't let myself do it for years, or I'm so scared to let myself do it that I don't even know where to begin. So this is a really big issue for INFJ personality types and INFP personality types. So why do we block ourselves from our own creativity? Well, there are a lot of reasons, creative wounds being one of them, and I will probably do a whole video on creative wounds for another day because that's such a big topic. But one of the really big reasons we block ourselves from creativity is because of the nature of the energy of creativity. A lot of times when people start out with a creative project, or they sit down and they say, okay, this is it. I'm going to start my book. I'm going to start my creative project. I've really dreamed of doing this for so long. And then they really get in there with the energy of creativity. Immediately, they discover that the energy of creativity is unstable. Creativity is an unstable energy. It always has been, it always will be. That is the nature of creativity. It's unstable. It has to be. Whenever you have something that has a really rigid container, or you try to put a really rigid structure around something, it will start losing in creativity because creativity needs space. It needs to expand, it needs to experiment, it needs to take one form, collapse out of that, create another form, collapse out of that. It might take many, many different forms before you have a finished product. And it necessarily starts out really amorphous, kind of blobby, kind of vague. I don't know what this thing is. I've never seen anything like it before. I don't know what kind of name to put to it. It's hard to describe. All those feelings are very common when you are first going into a creative project, when you get that idea and you have that inspiration, but then you start trying to bring it into form and you're like, wow, this is so not formed. This has so much like no shape. It's just kind of this blob and I don't know what to do with it. If you are someone who already has anxiety, if you are someone who is very scared of making a mistake or very scared of messing up, you have people-pleasing patterns, which a lot of INFP personality types and INFJ personality types do, then that energy of things being unstable and uncertain, it's really going to freak you out when you first start creating and you first start getting really deep into your own creative process, because you're going to feel disoriented. You're going to feel like, I don't know where this is going. I don't even know how I could explain this to family or friends if they asked what I was doing. It's really hard for me to put parameters around this thing that I'm trying to create. So it feels very unstable to me, and I don't know if I can trust it. A lot of INF personalities have trust issues, and those issues definitely are triggered in the creative process, because the creative process, it takes a lot of trust. It takes a lot of surrendering. And if you're someone who has previous trauma, you get triggered easily. When you're put in situations where you feel vulnerable, you don't know what's going to happen next. All that stuff is going to come up for you during the creative process. The second thing that tends to happen for INFJ and INFP personalities when they really start creating and they start working with the energy of creativity is that they start linking that in their minds to the idea of money or the idea of career or job. So that comes part from the way you're raised, but also partly from the way things are viewed in our society. We tend to have a really strict divide in our culture between, well, this is your job and this is what you do to make money, and that's worthwhile. That's the worthwhile activity in your life is your career because it makes money, and that's what's important. And anything else you do, like art or writing or dancing or sculpture, anything like that, that's on the side, and that's a hobby. And that's nice if you have luxury time, if you have free time to do that, but that's something that you should only do if you have leftover free time after work, after your chores, after you're done being a productive member of society. Then you can go off and indulge in your hobbies. And a lot of times it's seen as just that, an indulgence. So a lot of INFJs and a lot of INFPs have this idea of, if I'm going to create something, if I'm going to really work with my creativity and give this a shot, it has to somewhere down the line make money. Usually they're okay with, I'm not going to make money from it tomorrow. But in the back of their mind, they're saying, this has to make money someday. So if I'm interested in writing, I will invest in writing classes now. I will invest in writing books now. I will invest in giving myself a little bit of time to practice writing now, under the condition that one day I'm going to make some money from this, because that will make it worthwhile. Because that's what we were taught by our parents. That's what's really pushed on us by society, right? If you're doing something now and you're investing in yourself now, you're doing something that you really enjoy, and you're not retired, right? If you're still in the prime of life, your working life, then that should be part of a plan that it's going to make you money later. It's going to bring in greater income later. So because of that money-job link, we tend to put that on our creativity, and we put it on our creativity from day one. So we'll sit down and we have the idea for a novel that we've always wanted to write. We haven't yet started it. And we sit down and we say, okay, today's the day. I'm going to start at chapter 1, or we have an idea for a painting. Okay, we've picked up the paintbrush. I have the blank canvas. And then in the back of our mind, we have this, but this better be successful. This better work out. This better have a very certain outcome where it's worthwhile. So I can sell this to someone, or someone else thinks this is a good idea, or maybe this could be my job or my part-time job in the future. And when you start putting those ideas of money and success on the creative process, it smothers the creative process very quickly. It happens almost instantly. And the person will feel like, oh, this isn't so much fun anymore. Or I don't know why, but now I feel a sense of dread when I'm trying to create. Or I feel a sense of anxiety and panic when I'm trying to think about my creative life, because I'm trying to think about ways that I can package that and describe that to other people in a way that makes sense to them, which means, how are you going to make money from this, right? Answering that question. How is this going to be a worthwhile endeavor? You have to prove it to me. So because of all these factors, the creative process can be very, very scary for us. We have to give up control. We're being asked to trust. We might have trust issues. We might feel vulnerable. We're being asked to surrender. We're wondering if this is going to be worthwhile, if it's going to make money. We feel like we have to be successful at it. What if we fail? So all of this stuff is coming up, and it ends up feeling very, very scary. And like this possibility of us creating something really has the potential to get us hurt. That's what the mind sees. Like, this seems risky now. It started out sounding fun, and now it just seems really scary and risky, and like we might get hurt. We're going to back off of that. So then we block it. Even it might be consciously, it's usually subconsciously. We block it. Well, I'm not going there. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to put myself at risk. I'm not going to open myself up like that. I'm not going to take the chance that I might fail and ruin everything. So I'm just going to back off this whole thing. And then we subconsciously block our creativity. And usually this comes out in the form of all sorts of excuses, right? I don't have the time right now. My job's really demanding. I need to take, 3 more writing classes before I can start writing my book. Or I need to take another painting class before I can even pick up the brush and start dabbing paint on the canvas. Or I have to figure out how this would make money, or it's not going to make money, and I have to put my focus on that right now. Now, of course, we all need some source of income, right? Whether you're earning a paycheck or you have another source of income. But we don't always have to link that to our creative process. What our mind does is say, that's the most important thing. And until you can get that ironed out, you can't create. You're not allowed to indulge in these hobbies that you love so much. You can't do that. So again, we back off and we subconsciously say, I don't have time for this. I don't have the resources for this. And then when we block that creativity, we don't allow ourselves to create. We don't give ourselves the time we need. Then we become subconsciously angry. That's when the resentment starts up inside of us. And that anger turns inward because it has nowhere to go. A lot of the time, we're not even aware that we're angry. A lot of the time, we know that we're upset in some way or we don't feel happy, but we don't understand that we're actually angry, and we're angry at ourselves because we've blocked ourselves from being able to be creative. So that anger has nowhere to go and it turns inward. It turns into depression. And that's where we feel, I have no energy, I feel completely apathetic. Every time I think about doing something, it feels hopeless. I don't really see the point of this. It's because we're not creating. If you are an INFJ personality type or an INFP personality type, you need to be creating. It's a non-negotiable thing, and I teach this in all of my classes. People always have epiphanies around it, and they'll message me the next day and say, wow, in last night's class when you said creativity was a non-negotiable need, it was like a big aha moment for me. I had never thought of it that way before. I knew it deep in my soul because it really resonated when you said it, but I had never consciously known it. It is a non-negotiable need for INFJs and INFPs. I'm going to be teaching a new class on creativity and all of this good stuff coming up very soon. It starts February 28th. The class is called Creative Alchemy. We're going to be talking about the deep inner workings of the creative process, how the creative process affects our personal growth, how we are linked to our creative process in a way that we just can't get away from. There is no division between creativity and life, between your creative life and your regular life, your job, your creative projects, your relationships, your creativity muscle. All of that stuff is intertwined and intermixed, and you just can't separate it out. It's all one thing, and it all affects you. It affects your growth and development as a person. And if you are really interested in growing and evolving here, then you're going to have to do some serious, intense work with your creative process. That's creative alchemy. That's what we're going to be talking about over the course of 3 classes, starting February 28th. As always, every class is recorded, so if you can't make the class live, that's completely okay. You can catch the recordings later. Please sign up for my newsletter. That's where I'm going to send out all the notifications and updates about this class. People always ask me, do you have a class page on your website? No, I don't, and I probably won't in the foreseeable future because I teach them so quickly. I get feedback from people. I'll usually teach a class, and at the end of that class, the people in that class will say, hey, we want you to teach a class on this. And so then I'll put together a class based on that. So it really comes up so quickly that I don't have time to keep a class page updated. But if you're on my newsletter, you will get every single detail directly to your inbox. Thank you so much for joining me today. The next video in this series is also about creativity, INFJ and INFP creativity. It's called INFJ Obsessive Self-Consciousness. And yes, that is a key factor in INFJ creativity. So that next video, we will go so deep into that and how that affects your creative process. Thanks so much for joining me today. I will see you next time.